So next up, we're going to check out Kammyshep's a full breakdown of the Office of Naval Intelligence. Yeah, we're dropping into Halo on this one for the I can't believe it's not villains faction. And I'll be honest, I really don't believe it's not villains. Like, I legitimately do not believe that, and no one else should. They are very much, oh God, how are you not the people we're fighting? Yeah.
Halo universe, there is an organization so shrouded in mystery and confusion that even those within the organization don't even know that there are other units inside of it.
I don't recognize this. Like, I thought I knew most Halo areas in general just by osmosis, but I don't recognize this one. It's probably one of the new games, isn't it? That would do it.
They've done horrible things and incredible things. They created the Spartans. They funded the Infinity. They were the early...
Shit, they had to... Oh, they're the ones who funded Infinity? I mean, it's the Navy. It's a naval warship. Of course, the Office of Naval Intelligence would fund it, but the Infinity's cool. Why did they have to be attached to that? Probably because they're attached to every good thing in this universe. And the bad ones. Also, yeah, Duck, I saw how much you spent on this subathon. If you want to be done for the rest of the year, I completely understand, man. If you need to refund things, again, I understand. I know what you're about to say to that, but dear God.
Warning system for the Covenant invasions, and they halted the Covenant as it was making its way into human space. They brought down the colonial military authority and stole its resources. They studied the Covenant, the Flood, the Forerunners, and even the Ancients. Of course, I'm talking about the Office of Naval Intelligence. Some could say the boogeymen of the Halo universe. Some could say the saviors of the human race. But today, we're going to go over the foundation of ONI, how they consolidated power and became one of, if not the, most powerful organizations in human history.
I mean, it's the Office of Naval Intelligence. They have military defense contractor backing, and they know the shit. So I'm sure that's a very weird thing. No one can understand how that could happen. Also, just going to quote this because I think it's funny. Taryn said, they are the villains. They're just stuck with the good guys. Also, that's from Halo 5. Oh, yeah, that would do it. I know almost nothing from Halo 5, although I've heard good things about Infinity as far as gameplay goes. Specifically Halo Infinity, not the ship. Everything I heard about the ship is cool.
Created the strongest fighting force in human history, and how their research has kept humanity alive and strong in the post-war galaxy. But first, I'd like to thank our Patreon supporters like Michael the Eagle Scout, Boomerang, Lord Cypher, Bobby John 343, and Trevor Palamuso. Thank you guys so much, genuinely, for your continued...
I just recognized what song he was playing in the background. It's literally from the first Halo suite. I think I have the CD. Wow.
Support. It really does mean the world to me. I'm still waiting on the sample poster. The shipping time might make me not use them as a supplier, so hopefully I can get the poster, the sample in and get it shipped out. But here's a sneak peek for any of those of you who are considering joining the Patreon. You get some nice benefits. With that out of the way, we can get right into the video.
Foundation? ONI's sections and their functions.
The Office of Naval Intelligence is an old and storied organization, and as such, unfortunately, we just don't have a whole lot of information about how it was created. But we do know a couple of very key facts. We know that it was founded in 2478. These are like the dark ages of human lore. Basically,
I know we've done videos on Halo. I know I've played these games. I'm terrible at numbers. I don't remember any of the dates, so I'm going to be completely on the blank on this one.
Anywhere from like 2021 to 2511-ish, we know next to nothing. We know dates and a few names, but we aren't given full details on things. So again, we can say for sure that the organization was created in 2178, and that comes from a Halo Waypoint article that is no longer even on the website, and I had to go back.
What's Halo Waypoint? I'm assuming if they're mentioning an article, it was maybe a fan. No, it was probably an official in-universe site that was just accessible through the internet, like a fan website, essentially, or a website for the fans made officially. I missed all of this. I don't know.
Wayback Machine to find that archived article, but that is considered canon. We also know what its purpose was back in those days and its function. Back in those dark ages of Halo lore, it would have likely been a simple intelligence gathering organization.
A simple intelligence gathering. Oh, I'm sorry. So it would only be family-friendly war crimes. That makes much more sense.
Now, that may seem obvious to you, but there is a difference between a intelligence gathering agency or organization and what ONI would become in, like, current canon.
Sure about that? Are you really sure about that one? Because to give you an idea of what the generic real-world normal intelligence gathering operations are, would include the famous example of the FSB, the CIA, the NSA, and the KGB. You know, those completely no skeletons in the closet groups. So, Also, Bill said, all right, that's it. Steal his spleen. Oh, God, Bill. Please don't read the previous comment. Don't read it backwards this time. Spleen his steal. That's all right. Why'd you want me to... Oh, you said not to read it backwards. Okay. Well, I made that one mistake.
Intelligence gathering organization or agency does exactly what that sounds like. They gather intelligence. This could be through old-fashioned spying. This could be through communication tabs or recruiting agents with actionable intelligence. What that means is an ONI officer would go out and find someone who is in a place or position that could have important knowledge that the Office of Naval Intelligence may want. And then that person would convince the other person to hand over...
Am I the only one who heard the word convince and just immediately imagined the quotation marks going on? Like, he didn't even do it, and I just self-inserted them. That sounds about right.
That knowledge. This could be through violence, but it's much more commonly, at least in the real world for America, it's much more common through financial deals or services.
How old is this video? 4 weeks? Yeah. Ooh. I got bad news for this guy. Oh, yeah, that is not the case. Also, Doc, look above this one. Actually, I'm just going to pull up the comment. I was talking about how you read the channel activity thing the wrong way. It goes from the top to the bottom. Recommend looking... Oh, I was reading the old comments then, wasn't I? Oh. Yeah, the mic is spleen. Previous comment, and don't read it backwards this time. Spleen his steel mic, that's all right. This time I'm just doing it on purpose. I'm aware of that one. Casualties are unknown, and the line between saves and survival. I think this has actually come up in my recommendations from YouTube of all places. Like, I'm pretty sure I got it in Discord, but I think I got it from YouTube as well.
Services. So just for an example, I read a lot of books, and one of the authors that I really enjoy is a man named John Kiriakou, who you may have seen around YouTube. If I put his face here, you'll almost certainly recognize him. He talked about how he would recruit these enemies to hand over secrets to America. He would give them cash. He could get their children into Harvard. He could get them face-to-face meetings with Michael Jordan if they were a huge basketball fan. He could really do anything.
Harvard, I get, because money. If there's one thing we've proven, that's all that matters. Random Michael Jordan meetings. Not what I was expecting there.
Because the CIA's budget at that time, post 9/11, was nearly infinite. So that
post 9/11, like it wasn't nearly infinite before. Also, goddamn, David. Oh, wrong button. Noida for someone who doesn't play Noida by Airier, and Shatter Pixel Dungeon Reviews by Poots. Ooh. I'll put this up to a poll quickly because I think it would be one or the other. And I don't think I saw no, the Poots one we did was not that one. Uh-huh. Almost there. Okay, that's long enough. And that needs to be removed as well. Okay, there we go. I'll just leave this one up for David. Yep, we got the two options there. Whatever someone chooses, I'll put the other one on the list.
That's how it's done in the real world, at least for this ex-CIA officer that I have read a lot about. And so it would stand to...
If he's allowed to talk about it publicly, that means it's the stuff that is not going to be problematic. Because if it was going to be problematic, that's going to be classified. If it's classified, it doesn't matter if he's retired. He's not going to talk about it. What he's talking about is the stuff that he's allowed to. Unless it's been like however long it's been classified and it was declassified, in which case he could talk about the other shit as well. And for all I know, how long was this? Cold War ended in the 90s. It hasn't been long enough yet for probably most things to be unclassified. Also, David? Oh yeah, we're just going to add one of them in regardless. Thank you very much, man. But yeah, whatever wins the poll, I'll make the other one a part of the gameplay for everyone. Also, I just realized that the poll is still not working. Or the goal count is still not working. Someone close that as well. Yeah, sorry about that. I think we're at like 2 left.
Reason that would be the same for ONI. Hello, Future Cam here. I wanted to jump in here and say, because while I'm editing this video, I feel like there's some stuff left unsaid here. ONI almost certainly also used violence. I just wanted to make the point that that's probably not...
Oh, no, I never doubt ONI also used violence. I'm more surprised that he's thinking like the one guy who's talking about the things that are publicly accessible is indicating that most things were like that, because if you're doing these things, there's also everything else you're not allowed to talk about. Yeah. Like the CIA plan back in, I think it was the 60s, to delegitimize people by just introducing drugs to various communities. Because Nixon didn't like black people. Yeah. These are historically documented facts, and they weren't classified. You can find them still. This is not a do your own research moment. This is one of those, it's not actually research, it's publicly documented. You can hit up Wikipedia and they will actually bring you to the sources, which are government records directly. Yeah, and oh, David, make that one. I think, yeah, we'll have the poll almost immediately after this, I'm pretty sure.
Not how they did
yeah, now we're definitely doing it.
We have examples of them doing these things, like I'm talking about here, but we also have examples of them killing people, arresting people,
stealing children. Oh, so that's the Spartans in general. So I guess it's kind of obvious.
You could even go so far as to say torturing people. So it's probably
also with the Spartans, although at that point they were mind whammied.
Not how they collected information and intelligence most of the time, but it was also used. Now, ONI has several different sections within the organization that do different tasks. Publicly, and I don't mean publicly to like the human race in Halo, but like more to us, ONI sort of operates within 3 sections, but in reality...
3 sections? I'm guessing R&D, intelligence gathering, and spooky, scary, why the fuck are you the good guys shit that makes everyone want to hate them? Sounds about right. Also, David, so they felt comfortable keeping it public. Yikes. Yeah, I think that's mostly because Nixon didn't go on good terms, and a lot of things came out after that.
There are 5 sections. Section 0, Section 1, Section 2, Section 3, and Section 4. How would they start at 0? 5 in total. And really, Section 0 is a joke. Essentially, in modern Halo canon, it's a complete joke. This is the Internal Affairs Department.
Got it. HR. Yeah, that makes sense.
This is the department that is tasked with looking over ONI as a whole organization and finding illegal programs and shutting them down. You can tell why this is a joke immediately. This is one of the sections that wouldn't be known to the public widely, or even really within the Office of Naval Intelligence itself. Like I said, as I'm sure you've already noticed, ONI does a lot of illegal activity, especially...
The more terrifying thing is, if they actually have one of those, no one answers to them. What are they actually investigating that would require that to be there in the first place? Like, how bad do you have to fuck up in Halo for them to do something? Like, are we talking like, you didn't put that kitten back in the tree correctly? I know what I said. Or, oh God, oh God, oh God, let's not genocide this one. It's either really, really bad or it's really, really dumb. And there's no middle ground.
Section 3, and so the fact that they have an internal affairs office is kind of baffling. As far as I can tell, the only section that actually gives them any mind is Section 2, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes. Section 1 is your typical intelligence gathering section, which I've already spoken about a little bit.
Also, Isaac, wasn't it Ronald Reagan? Might have been. I could have got that mixed up, but I'm pretty sure also Nixon. Actually, it could have been all of them, actually.
This is the section.
Also, Dave, I'm just going to pull up your comment. And, there we go. So, ONI are the good guys in the sense that their enemies are worse or did they slowly deteriorate. Oh no, they were as bad as you are probably assuming. They didn't deteriorate. They just got more advanced usages of the horrible. And somehow they accidentally were the good guys. And I do mean accidentally. Also, Jerry mentioned, just remember, please put either of the list. Watch the fan-made Halo quality series named Crash. Yeah, sure, why not? Just gonna copy this in quickly. I'm adding a lot of ones I just want to do today, so it might put off some of the other ones. But these are relatively short names, so we can get a bunch in.
That would go out into the field and gather all that lovely data, all that lovely intelligence, and pass it on either to the UEG, UNSC, or CMA in the early days. This is a very, very important
before
section.
they kind of
This is the
consolidated
lifeblood of ONI. During the war with the insurrection, this would be the group, the section that would infiltrate the various insurrection organizations, break down their codes and communications, and pass it along again to the UNSC or the CMA. During the war with the Covenant, this was the section that would study their movements, issue evacuation orders to planets in the Covenant's path. Unfortunately, typically they were too late on that to make any real difference, but they did save lives. This would be the section that worked with Covenant languages, and while that is typically credited to Halsey, who primarily worked in Section 3, it would also fall under Section 1's jurisdiction. This would be the section to find things like the Covenant shipyard on the asteroid K7-49 that the Spartan 3s of Alpha Company were successful in making inoperable.
Okay, I'm just going to say it flat out. This is really cool and also really dumb, but it's really cool, but it looks so dumb, but it's cool. It's like, it looks like they're rocket jumping from their feet, but like near the ankles right here from where the blast fire from this gun is, it's just because of how it turned out, it looks like it's coming from him and his knife. It's not, but it looks that way.
Would find the Covenant fuel refinery on Pegassi Delta that the Spartan 3s of Beta Company would be successful in destroying. I mean, if you really, really think about it, this is the intelligence gathering section of ONI. How many missions have the Spartans been sent on based on this ONI intelligence?
That didn't go to plan?
On any ONI intelligence. If it came from ONI, it probably came from Section 1. I mean, that's hundreds of missions, maybe thousands of missions. It's an almost incalculable impact that this section has on the universe. In most of the games, the Master Chief is sort of going it alone on a lone ship with minimal support.
What game is
so
this
the
one?
Intel that this section would gather really isn't shown in the games, but really almost every single book, save for the Flood, would have some information gathered by ONI that would have been gathered by this section. So in the books, it's very, very different.
Again, well, actually, not again. I mentioned other videos when it came to Halo. I have read some of the novels. The first three are one of the ones that I remember the most thoroughly, and Fall of Reach was great, like amazingly written. The Flood, I think, was pretty good, but it was mostly a recap. And I think the third book, I don't remember, unless I have it backwards. Whatever the second book was in the series of the first three was more or less a recap, and not good because the gameplay we already kind of did that. But it was well written for when it could break through gameplay elements.
One would find ships that Spartans would nuke in Silent Storm. They would find the Covenant ship on Netherop that the Spartans would be sent to in Oblivion. They would be the ones to send Grey Team to the Rubble. They would be the ones to find Sadie and Virgil on a planet called Talitza. There are so many smaller stories within the Halo universe that it's impossible to tell them all. If you ever read a Halo book and you read something that comes down to, oh, ONI found this, that would have come from Section 1. Even in the Fall of Reach, there are a ton of small tidbits of information that would have come from Section 1. This section is also responsible for working with Section 4, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but Section 1 was responsible for keeping key locations a secret from the outside. So this would be things like Onyx that the Spartan 3s used as a training ground, as well as various black sites throughout the galaxy.
How did that work out? I remember
secret locations that we've talked about either in my videos or other videos that the Office of Naval Intelligence is keeping a secret. That would be the responsibility of Section 1 to conceal those locations. Section 2 is the section that would work with propaganda and information suppression.
Oh yeah, they probably got absolutely and utterly destroyed in the nothing is wrong, nothing to see here. Ignore the part of the planet that is currently glass. This is safe. Yeah, that probably did not go well. That probably went about as well as you think. Yeah.
I just talked about how Section 1 would suppress planetary information, or location data, as well as various black sites throughout human-occupied space. They would work with Section 4 to find those planets, and then work with Section 2 to keep those planets a secret. Now, Section 2's main function was to lie to the public. This would be the section that would release details about the Spartans to the public as well. The section that would come up with the Spartans Never Die moniker. There were...
Yeah, I actually remember that bit of obvious propaganda from the games. Spartans never die. Except for when, they do, but we're going to ignore that because propaganda. Also, that's the type of propaganda that does exist in history, where there's a lot of places where it say, we do not mark these people as dead, they are just missing. That's not unique. Or what a lot of other previous ones did is, there are the insert amount here of this insert unit here. And when one dies, they're just immediately replaced. So it looks like they never lose anyone because they always have the full complement as a way of just keeping morale up.
A couple different reasons ONI came up with the Spartans Never Die thing and why they are listed as MIA rather than as killed when they are killed.
Yeah.
But the most important reason is the fact that the Spartans were declassified to both improve morale of the fleet, but also the morale of the public.
And if they didn't, it probably would have utterly collapsed under the you're gonna die aspect. Also, goddamn, David, thank you very much, man. T-Corp, the most predatory city in fiction. Oh, no. Wait, what do you mean the most predatory? I will have you know, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of other very predatory groups that would love to take that title. Something, Samsung owns, I was going to say North Korea, but Korea in general. Oh, no, wait, this is T-Corp. I was thinking Umbrella for some reason. Oh, God, Limbus. This will be fun.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah, we'll just save this for later. Oh, God.
After basically 20 years of being slammed by the Covenant, all of a sudden, the human race had these heroes to look up to that were taking
the 20
fight
years
to
to
the Covenant
declassify
and
them.
actually winning with reliability. The thought was that if these Spartans were shown to be killed, as what happens all the time, contrary to popular belief, that would deliver a devastating blow to morale, both to the public and also to the fleet. This is also the section that would handle the Hunt the Truth podcast series, a series that is free on most podcast services, I think.
Wait, what?
But a man named Benjamin Giroux was hired to do a piece on the Master Chief. He was a reporter, and so he was hired to do this piece on the Master Chief, this hero of humanity, and he was hired by ONI's senior communications officer, a man named Michael Sullivan. Now this...
Wait, so is this in-universe fiction that was made publicly available? Or in-universe fiction that is publicly available outside of universe, like an ARG aspect? Well, not really ARG, more just like extra media. I don't remember. Although I do know early on when Halo was coming out, they did like to make a lot of extra content. Some things they pulled into Destiny, some things they pulled from first marathons. I think there was like 3 of them. Back when they probably still existed. Yeah, now I remember they're about to be shut down. Oh, that's depressing.
Piece was meant to be just a puff piece on how awesome the Master Chief is, how he grew up to be this insane soldier, but things quickly go wrong when Giroux starts finding inconsistencies in the story he was given by ONI
so this is
and
in
the
universe
sources that
then.
he found on his own. One source tells him that the Chief was killed by some genetic disease when he was 6 years old, and then other sources given to him by ONI talked about how the Chief lived in an insurrectionist concentration camp in his...
ONI hired this guy, and they had him actually do journalism. If you're going to do propaganda, don't hire someone outside who doesn't know the truth to do it because they find shit. Granted, who thinks of that? So yeah, I guess that's more just why not. Also, it's basically a more grounded successor to Red vs. Blue, Terran. Oh, nice.
teens, was a boxing champion, and all this stuff that it was just obviously false.
Oh, also, pull out your comment here because we were talking about Bungie in general. Do I hate Marathon game? The new one? I mean, I'm not a big fan of extraction shooters, so it doesn't really appeal to me. But from what I've heard, for people who do enjoy extraction shooters, it's a very well done example of exactly that entire franchise, or I guess genre. The thing is, it's not the most appealing genre to a lot of people, so the money they put into making the game is not equaling what they're making from the game. Yeah.
else. That's all I'll go into now when it comes to Hunt the Truth, because it really is a fantastic, genuinely good thing that I think every Halo fan should listen to, so I'll let you do that. The first season is really great. Second season.
So it's media made for the game. Okay.
Not so much. Now, like I've said, Section 2 would also be tasked with covering up critical information. Now, it's a very common misconception that ONI covered up the truth of the Human Covenant War, how the Covenant was burning planets, and how planet after planet fell, and billions were being killed.
Yeah, there's no way to hide that.
And that's just not the case. ONI would have covered up some of the smaller details of the
if they're releasing Spartan information, they've already given up on covering that. There's no way that one works if the other has already happened.
war, like specific locations, certainly UNSC war efforts, but they wouldn't try to tell the greater human race that the Covenant wasn't coming, or even try to hide those facts about the Covenant. In fact, I'm rereading the Battleborn series right now, and
Battleborn?
The children who grew up on Meridian are actually taught about the Covenant in school. That wouldn't be a thing if ONI was trying to cover up the Covenant. They didn't sugarcoat the truth of the war, and as we've talked about a little bit, Section 1 actually sent evacuation orders to planets.
Okay, I just want to say just how interesting this art style is, because having multiple planets or just like multiple mountain ranges piercing clouds, it happens. Like Everest example, or even the Rockies in some places in America and in Asia are places where this happens. But it's not the common one, because usually cloud cover is higher than most structures on a planet. And there's just so many in this area that are piercing. It looks so cool as far as art goes. Sorry, planetary art can be sometimes boring and, oh, that's safe. Other times it shows this much detail, and I just love it, man. Oh. Also, Bill, you heard that Marathon might get a PvE campaign. That would actually make me consider doing it. Nice. Also, Genesis, the old Republic games are getting remastered. Oh, wait, that's real? Oh, shit. I've actually never played them, so I might check them out if that happens. I heard a lot of good things about them. But also, I never had a computer that could run them back then, so.
In imminent danger, and you can't have it both ways. You can't suppress something that's already out. If you're going to tell an entire planet to evacuate, you can't tell the rest of humanity.
I mean, Russia tried that with Chernobyl, and see how that went.
That there isn't anything.
Actually, for a few days it did.
But that being said, obviously there were some things that were being covered up and that were propagandized. For the most part, that would be like the Forerunners, Halo, the Flood. When the Covenant came to Earth and the accession zone was cleared, a ship dropped out of slip space. Now, of course, we know that this was a flood-infested ship sent by the Gravemind, and the elites glassed a portion of East Africa to make sure the flood couldn't spread. But this was
And admittedly, that is the right choice, because fuck the flood. But also, Duck, we stream Monday Federal Holiday? Nope, because I gotta work. Yeah.
stroke of luck for the Office of Naval Intelligence, because they had a built-in cover story. They told everyone that this was a Covenant glassing rather than the flood coming out.
And also it was.
Want the flood to be widely known. Section 2 also engaged in diversion tactics. They would send probes into slip space with human recordings, with recordings of human carrier signals, hoping that the Covenant would find them and
if it works, that's brilliant. If it doesn't, hopefully they can track it back.
Follow them away from Earth. It's not clear whether or not this was an effective means of protecting Earth. We know that for a fact the Cole Protocol was an effective means of protecting Earth, but this also could have helped. Then we get to the big one, Section...
Actually, it'd be kind of funny if in the future someone finds these probes, if they're not shot down, they're still there, and just lead someone completely off on a wild goose chase as a story plot line. Will it go that way? I have no idea, but it would be a thing.
3. Now, when I think of ONI, I think of Section 3. For people in universe that even know about Section 3, which is a small amount, the mere mention is enough to strike dread into the hearts of those people. Name something that ONI has done, and Section 3 probably had a hand in it. Spartans, Section 3, Mjolnir, Section 3, Energy Shielding, Section 3, the Infinity, Section 3. Well, I can't say that the Infinity was all Section 3.
Okay, at least they're not entirely responsible for that. It would be kind of depressing at that point.
It's definitely a collaboration between Section 3, other sections of ONI, and the fleet as well, but you get the point. Section 3 had a hand in almost everything. Now, Section 3 is the Special Projects Division of ONI, with direct oversight from Margaret Parangoski and now Saren Osman. In other words...
I've heard of Parangoski because she's just the equivalent of saying, you want someone who's basically Amanda Waller from DC, but slightly more competent and less hated, but probably shouldn't be less hated? This character. I have no idea who the second name is, though.
Words. Nobody fucks with Section 3. They are the end-all of the organization. They do what they want, they do it when they want, and there's nobody but the Commander-in-Chief of ONI to tell them no.
So, in other words, it functions more like IRL spy agencies. I know what I said.
Such, Section 3 comes to have this reputation of being the monster of the human empire, and in many ways that is true. Section 3 has done monstrous things to the people of the United Earth government, the aliens of the galaxy, and those who deem themselves outside of the control of the UEG, but in my opinion, these things are done in the best interest of the human race.
Especially when it works, not especially when it doesn't. And I think I've heard a few mentions that they intentionally or unintentionally radicalized populations they were trying to control that were separatist, and also some of the aliens that weren't intentionally trying to fuck over humanity early on. Also, Genesis, have I heard the spin-off game Destiny Rising? I've heard of it, and I thought it was already canceled, although I could be mistaken about that.
Most of what we read about in Halo has something to do with Section 3, and the reason for that is, for the most part, we're reading about Spartans. Most of Dr. Halsey's life is entrenched in Section 3, creating the Spartans and creating Mjolnir. And while you could argue that, Halsey did horrible things, and I have argued that Halsey has done horrible things, like kidnapping children, like replacing them with Flash clones, it is an undeniable fact that the Spartans saved humanity. And so while
we can honestly narrow that down and kind of just say, John 117, the Master Chief, saved humanity. The rest helped. A lot, but it was help. They got the assist on that one.
When he does these things that we could say is horrible, they do it in the best interest of the human race. Within Section 3, there are various subsections, like the Materials Group. That is an even smaller and even more secretive group, but it's technically residing within Section 3. They'd be responsible for the research and development of alien technologies like the Energy Shield Gauntlet and Elite Combat Harness that would be the basis for Spartan energy shielding in the Mark V. The Materials Group specifically is steeped in...
Oh, God, I just realized. This actually hurts me on a fundamental level. They're essentially wearing VR glasses over top glasses. You can even see they're designing them to look like essentially a VR headset would now if stripped away from the convenience aspects. I'm just saying, someone here was looking at the metaverse and going, that's a good idea, let's put it into the game.
Steeped in Mjolnir lore. They were the ones that ran the Damascus testing facility on Chai Seti 4. They were the group that physically made Mjolnir, and not just one suit.
Why is it raining?
They made dozens of Mjolnir variants, from the basic marks that we see the Master Chief use, but also like the Scout class Mjolnir, Recon class Mjolnir, EVA, EOD, and even Hayabusa. The Beta 5 division of Section 3 was a group that was responsible for the Spartan 3 program before the creation of the Spartan branch. Let me back up. They would be the ones who would manage the Spartan 3 program before the...
Sorry about that. Coffee went down the wrong pipe.
Spartan branch. They would be the ones to facilitate things like Operation Torpedo and Operation Prometheus, as well as the Headhunter program. They would also oversee the Ferrets after the war. So the Ferret Squad trilogy, as well as their short story.
They usually go with like really grandiose names. Ferrets? Really? The cute, fuzzy little danger or angry noodle that likes to hide its poop? Yeah, sure, why not? That sounds about right.
that would be directly overseen by Beta 5. They were also responsible for various Mjolnir variants, not quite on the same level as the materials group was, and they were mostly contracting that work out to third-party companies, but they would still be responsible for it. Beta 5 was also responsible for finding Dr. Halsey's journal after the fall of Reach and sending it to Parangoski. After the New Phoenix incident, they would interview the Master Chief on his experiences with Cortana, and Beta 5 has actually influenced the real world as well, and this is a super cool detail. In 2610, the man that possessed Dr. Halsey's actual physical journal would die, and one of his subordinates within Beta 5 would for some reason send the journal as well as other materials pertaining to it out to their cousin, another Beta 5 operative, and that package is the legendary edition of Halo Reach, which I find to be super cool. I love...
Wait. So they packaged a specific version as an in-universe reason. Okay, yeah, I can see why he's okay with that. That is, a lot of the time, pre-ordering is not worth it. But every now and again, when you get cool little things like that, if money's not an issue, which whenever this was coming out, it very much was, this list looks so cool. It's like the people who got the Master Chief helmet whenever they bought some of the early games. I'm not even sure which games they were, but I know I've seen them like on Young A's channel. They're so cool. I wish some of the new games weren't as depressing. Not for in-play reasons, like apparently they still play well, but just more of the, you like having a good story? Too bad moments. Again, I've heard the Story for Infinity was fine. Yeah. Also, let's see, Taryn, you asked to read the previous comments you made. 1 second. It's only featured pretty prominently as well. Oh, for Crash, yeah, because you mentioned that one. I think we have it down there as well. Help the humanity buy time so the Chief and Covenant Schism could save them. Yeah. The Schism definitely is probably the only reason people actually survived, and the Chief just leading into it by putting the pressure on until it could happen.
Of when games do something that influence or have a real world counterpart. So when I was 10, Halo, I think Halo Reach came out in September, so I would have been 9. When I was 9, I got Halo Reach.
I need to just quickly look something up that in no way, shape, or form will depress me. And this is not in any way, shape, or form going to be me sitting here and feeling like an old man, but when did Halo Reach come out? "2010. I remember that. I was in college. Like, literally, I think I met my wife the next year. Oh, jeez. Don't mind me. I'm just going to go old in the corner here. Oh, that's going to get more common as it goes, isn't it?
Enthralled with it. I saved up.
You know, I've been holding off on saying this the entire time. God damn, I'm having chair envy. I like the wide wings on chairs. It means you can just lay on either side and take a nap in them, and they're super comfy for that. Not so much the metal studs. Those are very unpleasant.
Like my birthday money and my Christmas money, and I bought Halo Reach again in the Legendary Edition, and so I still have it. It's
probably a collector's item.
The
if
statue's right there. The journal is on my bookshelf over there.
Yeah,
and the
it might very well be a collector. Open those
for
less.
It's down in my garage right now, safely stored away, so no moisture or anything like that can get into it, of course. Section 4 is a much lesser known section of the organization. This is the section that was in charge of planetary surveys. Very basically, their function was to find new planets that can...
Honestly, I'm kind of surprised that's not the first one, as opposed to the intelligence gathering being the first one. Just because maybe it was a different function before being folded into ONI then.
Be used for ONI's uses. This would be planets like Onyx that would be kept a secret by Section 1 and Section 2.
Oh, it's for their uses specifically. Oh, that's why.
And then was used by Section 3 to create the Spartan 3 program. The work that Section 4 does would make possible things like Rosbox World, a planet that was found by Section 4, that the AI known as Black Box basically hijacked, for lack of a better term, and built a cabin there, stocked it with provisions, and cooked the books to cover it all up. When the Created came for Earth, the commanders-in-chief of the fleet and ONI were taken from Sydney to Rosbox World. That would be Saren Osman and Lord Terrence Hood. They were taken to Rosbox World where they could sort of camp out safe from the Created uprising, and then of course they were saved by Grey Team in Empty Throne. Now ONI sections are a bit complicated, and that is on purpose. Most of the organization doesn't even know that there are other sections of the organization and simply believe that ONI is ONI. But this...
I mean, they're not wrong, ONI is ONI, but they're just not even knowing about the other ones? Especially for Section 3, who just does all the shit. I mean, I guess if you ignore everything, that they're probably ones who believe it the most accurate, because no one else is ever going to second-guess them under penalty of, we will just shoot you.
This is what Black Box had to say on how ONI functions and how ONI sections secretly work against each other. He says this, he says, "Is ONI one happy family? Oh please, we've got 4 divisions officially, and only one of them knows that we've actually got more than that. There's Section 2, made up of PsyOps and PR, who each kid themselves that they're not like the others, which tells the lies. Section 0, which thinks it spies on everyone else, tells lies to Section 2, and thinks it tells lies to Section 1 and 3. Section 1 does stuff that we can almost talk about, the interface with other branches, and Section 3 does stuff that we can't talk about, or else I would have to kill everyone and..."
Yeah, that sounds more like all of them, actually. This is why you know this is a fantasy organization, because the kill everyone started with only this section halfway into the paragraph. Again, there's a lot more history there with IRL ones. The declassified ones, man. Like, the novel The Spy That Came In From a Cold is a very good example of what happened. Also, dear God, Real Maribone, or Maribrine? I know I mispronounce your name every time. One, thank you very much, too. Here's a suggestion that could lead to some fun reactions. Oh, no. In the future. The Samar... Wait, why does that sound familiar? Compilation from the channel villain support. Maybe that's why, yeah. It started as one thing on TikTok, grown into a huge fandom today. America Wizard appears in a few shorts. Yeah, we're doing that one. Also, that means I need to remove villain support because he was in here. Or not. Oh, I misspelled villain support. And now we're just doing that one. One sec.
Fascinating and ground.
Yoink. Oh, it's verse... Okay, this is going to be a thing.
Villains.
Also, David, can Frey be the next vid up? I don't know which one that was. Yeah, sure, why not? Because other than that, it would be Team... Actually, no, Team Fortress will have to be next, but then we'll do Frey right after that. Villain support would be good. And again, anything that involves American Wizard is going to be good regardless.
Groundbreaking ways. Technically, we're not a numbered section at all. This is him talking to a Kilo 5. Technically, we're not a numbered section at all. You're the Praetorian Guard of Cinconi in a way, and we just call Cinconi's staff Core 4. Although it's actually Core 5 of Bravo 6, and DCS reports directly to it. You'll note I didn't mention HICOM, and that's because all ONI sections lie to HICOM and tell it that it's the most powerful body on Earth, which generally works at keeping the old buffers convinced that they make the decisions. Now, are you confused? I certainly hope so, because that's my mission.
I mean, it basically is the left hand doesn't know what the right pinky is doing on the other person's butt. And somehow they're all on the same person. You don't even realize that. Perfectly understandable. Generally, though, this is why you know it's fantasy. Because they're actually talking, and rather than just saying, nah, there's only one of us, ignore everything else. Nothing else exists. We've always been in war with boxing, say. If that sounds wrong to anyone else, I don't know what you're talking about. It's always been that way.
From this small excerpt in the Thursday War, we can tell that the sections being this way is on purpose. It's complex for a reason, and that reason is that it's an organization of spies and the most robust.
Cough, cough. The people writing it were trying to make it seem more complex, but they didn't actually know what spy organizations look like.
and powerful organization in human existence. It has to keep itself in check and keep the rest of the galaxy in check as well, while also plugging leaks and making sure that nobody actually knows what ONI is doing. It's a very complex dance of lies and spies and secrets. Even though those are the 4 numbered sections of ONI, there is more to come. ONI is not only an intelligence-gathering organization, but it is also a paramilitary organization, meaning that ONI...
Considering the Spartans are part of it, do they even count as paramilitary, considering they're just military, like, flat out? Or are they talking about things in addition to the Spartans? Huh. And Taryn, yes, half of what I said was there is no war in Ba Sing Se, but we've always been at war was part of the phrase from 1984, which is, we've always been at war with Eurasia. Yeah, I mixed them together.
He doesn't just gather information, keep secrets, and lie to the public, but they also have their own...
They put Cade 6 in this thing? Okay, sure, why not?
Fighting force that is sort of outside jurisdiction of the greater UNSC. And what we most often see in the books from this is the Prowler Corps. Now, the Prowler Corps is exactly what it sounds like. It's a fleet of prowlers. And prowlers were very special to the UNSC because they were stealth vessels, and stealth vessels were one of the very few things that the UNSC and humanity as a whole did very well, even better than the Covenant.
Oh.
The Covenant just couldn't see the damn thing, so they were used in very high-risk, high-reward missions that the Spartans were typically sent on.
I'm going to read out chat because I need to subject everyone else to this knowledge now. And I do mean subject, so I'm not apologizing. According to Genesis, Michael Bay has returned to making a Transformers movie. Depends. Some of what he did was fine. I think the first half of the first Transformers movies was unironically an amazing horror movie with Transformers as the big mystery. And then there was the second movie. Yep.
Prowler Corps were extensively used in books like Silent Storm, where the Spartans used nuclear weapons on Covenant ships and even in Covenant cities. They were used when the Covenant left a trap on Netherop for the Spartans. They were also used in several other operations across the galaxy, both against the Covenant, but also against the insurrection as well. There was also the ONI security team and the physical and technical security office that worked as security for...
Oh, you just get to walk around a base?
Station,
oh.
Like the Spartan 3's training camp, Camp Kuraki, like the Spartan
Again, I have
2
not played a lot of the games.
Facilities throughout.
First 3, sure, after that.
Like ONI black sites. There was also the Department of Colonial Security, DCS, which I mentioned earlier, which I think I'm going to save for a little later on.
Oh. We're only on chapter 2. Oh, God. And Krog, the Transformers movies were fun. If you didn't think you just watched the cool big robots, yeah, they weren't horrible. Although there was parts of the second movie where I'm just sitting there going like, this movie would be better if you just cut this scene. The second movie specifically. Consolidation. There was 4 movies?
In the late 2490s, the Colonial Military Authority would be declining in power, and the outer colonies were rising in viciousness. Colonial Military Authority is generally called the CMA, and as such, as they were declining in power and the outer colonies were rising up, the CMA brought back the Orion Project, which again we'll talk about here in a few minutes.
I know that sounds familiar, but
now.
Also being told that was a cutscene from Halo 4. That would be why I didn't know it then.
But the rebirth of this project gave rise to super soldier conspiracies that the Office of Naval Intelligence would pounce on for propaganda. Now, on top of that, ONI soldiers...
Is it a conspiracy if they actually did it? Oh, because they hadn't actually done it at this point. Yeah, it's when it first started having a conflict with the outer colonies.
Also found documents that CMA officers were secretly on the Successionist Union payroll, that is a insurrectionist organization. In other words, Orion soldiers that were created by the CMA found documents that implicated CMA officers in the insurrection. ONI, with the help of these Orion soldiers, actually published this revelation to the public, which began the end of the CMA. From here, the UNSC and the Office of Naval Intelligence moved to shut down, for lack of a better word, the CMA and absorb their resources. Much of the CMA were dispersed among the UNSC's Naval Command as well as the Unified Ground Command. In other words, the CMA, or at least a lot of it, was simply taken by the UNSC and dispersed amongst the organization. This would be ships, this would be personnel, this would be weaponry. Now, when
They're using a lot of footage from this one, but I don't remember which game this is from. So it's probably 4 or 5. That would do it. Also, I'm being told it was augmented Marines, not just full super soldiers. So the Orions are Spartan 1s. Oh, okay. And the Spartan 1s were the ones that had a lot of issues. I remember hearing about that, which is why the Spartan 2s were the ones who were taking as kids, because they can grow into it and have less issues, even though so many still did.
the CMA was created, around that same time, another organization was created called the Colonial Administration Authority, or the CAA. Now, the CAA is a complex organization.
I will have you say that name correctly. Welcome to the Ka. Yep. What are we dealing with? We deal with the Ka. Sounds like I'm saying car with a Boston accent. That makes about sense. Yeah, sure.
In the beginning, it was tasked with actually colonizing the other solar systems. And
this is one thing I think when Halo does, they always do a good job on. Every time Halo goes black and white drawings, things like this pop up, and they're just... It's like you could see the design here is both fungal, but there's... it looks like turrets on it. You see all of the driving space. The bay is being accounted for. Like, this is beautiful, man. I love techscapes. And this is... It's techno-futurism that looks like it's fungus growing on a planet. It's freaking beautiful, though.
Systems. And then once those solar systems were colonized,
that was from Halo 2 Anniversary?
Governing those colonies under the watch of the United Earth government, while the United Nations governed Earth. It's very, very complex. Very basically,
I just realized in the background we have more of the Halo suite. Nice.
UEG at the top, the United Nations were governing Earth, and the CAA was governing colonies outside of the Sol system, but it all reported back to the UEG. Within the CAA, there was a branch called the Department of Colonial Security, or DCS. Very basically, it was ONI, but for the colonies. And when the CMA fell, so did the CAA, but not quite in the same way. And the UNSC, when all of this was happening, was a young officer, a captain actually, named Margaret Parangoski, someone who...
I'm sorry, this is when she was a young officer? What the hell did she look like when she got old? Oh, God.
We all know and love. Well, you might not love her, but we all know. And when the CMA and CAA fell, many people in the UNSC and ONI didn't want to muddy their hands with the disgraced organization's fallen components. This young captain was different. Parangoski took control of DCS, and instantly, like that, she received a massive force of spies and civilian analysts that were only loyal to her. These people didn't...
See that last part, the only to her? Yeah, that goes from, I think we could do this to, I could tell them to do horrible things, and everyone else who might not agree with me suddenly is going to agree with me because I got the power. And it makes sense they're only to her because, at least from how it's said, there's literally no one else. Because the people you're associated with previously are throwing you away because not wanting to be part of the UNSC, and none of the UNSC want to do it. So it's like, you're working with me or you're not. And I'm not sure if I mean that not working or just not a person, because you will be dissing bullet through the head, which I'm honestly leaning more towards the second one than anything else. So yeah, great loyalty of you have no choice and you're doing that knowingly.
Particularly,
maybe I'm misreading, but I don't think I am from what I know of this character.
Took them in and in many ways saved their jobs and livelihoods.
And
lives.
As
such, these people had no loyalties to anyone but Parangoski, and they answered to nobody either. She was able to keep hold of DCS, while the UNSC took the CMA and the UEG took the CAA. I know that's very complex. For all intents and purposes, the colonies were no longer watched by colonial authorities, but now by the United Earth Government,
Yeah.
United Nations Space Command, and the Office of Naval Intelligence.
I've mentioned this before, and I'm going to mention it again because this does absolutely amuse me. A number of years ago, there was a segment, I think on CNN or maybe BBC, where they need to get a flag or a logo for some various United Nations aspects. They pulled up the United Nations flags from Halo, specifically for the UNSC, because there is no actual IRL United Nations space logo. So they pulled it from Halo without realizing it. I find this absolutely amazing. I'm going to remind people of this every chance I can because that's just funny, man.
Is a huge consolidation of power since Perengoski held DCS together and used them to amazing effect. She climbed through the UNSC's ranks, eventually becoming a rear admiral and becoming the commander-in-chief of the Office of Naval Intelligence,
which is how I know her
DCS
most.
Friends
I think most people would as well,
and creating a powerhouse of an intelligence organization.
Because if you have the unit that everyone knows they're lying, but you're not sure what they're lying about, and then also it doesn't matter because I'm not going to lie to my people because they will kill anyone I want them to. Would they kill? I mean, I would. Yes, they would. Yeah, this is not so much that she took over and more, she already had the power, it sounds like. That makes sense.
But Perengoski's consolidation of power wouldn't stop there. In Halo, it is implied that there are many other intelligence-gathering organizations. Now, we know next to nothing about these various organizations, whether they were military or civilian, but only a short decade or two after the CMA, CAA, and DCS fell, the Covenant came. And under Perengoski's leadership, the Office of Naval Intelligence, and Perengoski's outer colony DCS agents, ONI was able to use information and projects that they oversaw during the Human Covenant War to become the primary intelligence agency for both the UNSC and the UEG. Now, like I said, we know next to nothing about these other intelligence-gathering organizations, so we don't really know what information they were able to contribute to the war, but ONI was so effective and their information was so valuable that they effectively made the other intelligence organizations obsolete. So nobody uses them anymore.
This might just be me, but every time I hear they made the other ones obsolete so no one uses them, that feels like it's a plot hook for the no, actually we're still using them because you still exist, so someone has to still use them. No, maybe it's just they're defunct. They don't want to deal with that. But it sounds a lot more like if someone in a novel ever wanted a plot line with a rival spy agency making trouble because someone doesn't trust ONI. This is a great way to just lead that in. And maybe that's why that's even mentioned all in lore, because it is a really good plot hook for we need a faction. Oh yeah, previous rival spy agency that's on the down low. Neat. It's not even unbelievable either.
They just don't have to, and so they use ONI. Now, what is interesting to me is that they are the intelligence agency for not only the UNSC, that's expected, but also for the UEG. Now, that is interesting to me because the UEG effectively has no power outside of civil governance. The UEG can make laws for civilians and enforce those laws through the civilian police force, but the higher-ups of ONI make no illusion that the UEG doesn't do anything that ONI doesn't already sign off on, or hasn't already signed off on. In fact, ONI, in my opinion, is the most powerful organization in the human empire. Not only are they a paramilitary organization, so they can go out and fight on their own and carry out their own operations without oversight of the UEG or UNSC, like we see in the Kilo 5 trilogy, that entire mission.
I don't know anything about the Kilo 5 trilogy, so everything he says here is either new to me or just going to be completely missed. Which is entirely possible. Me missing something, I mean, that never happens.
Is not overseen by UNSC. It is 100% ONI. But they are also the ones feeding information to the UNSC and the UEG. And if you don't want something to be known by those other organizations in the human empire, they simply don't tell them and take care of things themselves. That's a huge deal. The UEG, the United Earth Government, couldn't have done much anyway, but if ONI is keeping secrets, keeping information away from the UNSC, that makes them the doorman of what the UNSC can do.
The obvious downside to this would be if they ever have such a big PR victory, or not victory, a loss that people just stop using them because they don't trust them in the first place. Yeah, they control everything, but they're still getting money from places. They're still being used. This is more of a not so much in-universe thing that would ever come up because it's fiction. They have the money because they control everything. But if this was more trying to point a narrative element that could be used against them, the obvious one would be they lose the trust of the people who they think they control, and then they go to those other agencies to get the information they think ONI is just not telling them, which, I mean, probably would be true. Now, whether those other agencies are just controlled by ONI, I mean, I'd assume they were, just because that's how narratively it would fit. But it would lead into that entire power imbalance of, you got to pay lip service to the guy in charge until, oh shit, they actually had, you know, it wasn't really power until it actually was power. It's funny how that kind of thing can happen. And it does make for an interesting plot line if they wouldn't go that way. And if this sounds like I'm huffing a lot of cope because some of the plot lines are more, ooh, here's a new future alien species that's even more powerful that we need to fight. This also somehow makes the Flood and the Forerunners look like nothing by comparison. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not trying to distract myself from the way they're trying to write things lately. I just... Yeah. Also, Genesis, the Bloodborne is not happening? Yeah, but there is a Bloodborne movie. I think it's being done by Jacksepticeye. I'm not sure what his involvement is. I think maybe a producer.
UNSC can only work on information that they are given by ONI. And if it's not given to them, they can't do anything. That alone is a huge deal and one of the reasons why ONI continues to be so powerful when the war concludes. Now, the Office of Naval Intelligence does a few things really well, and one of them is juicing.
He was going to say juicing kids. I was about to say it's probably crimes against humanity, because if the aliens aren't doing it, they are.
Soldiers to the gills and making the best super soldiers in the galaxy. The best super soldiers that the galaxy has ever seen in the modern timeline. But it didn't...
And a bunch of others who came later who were awesome, but also written like red shirts.
Come without significant setbacks. ONI's Beta 5 division would oversee humanity's first attempt at super soldiers in the Orion Project. Now, the Orion Project is very, very interesting because its roots go all the way back to the founding days of the UNSC and ONI. And in fact...
I know that there's people from this still around, but I don't actually know much about the early part about ONI. Like, not just the part he's covered, but the Orion Project, what came before the Spartan 2s. I've read books about them, I just completely forgot.
It wasn't even a project to bolster the UNSC, but the CMA. ONI started this project, did the research and testing, and administered the augmentations, but the soldiers involved were CMA volunteers. The purpose of this program was to simply make the CMA stronger so that it could effectively police the outer colonies.
Remember when they actually volunteered people? Yeah.
The colonies outside of the Sol system at that time. Remember, this is 2310s-ish to the 2320s. So human colonies were not the hundreds of planets spread out among hundreds of solar systems yet. This was only about 20 to 30 years after the Shaw Fujikawa translate engine was invented, giving humans the ability to go into other solar systems. So
okay, I know this is a minor thing to say, but I've just been staring at his beard this entire time. All I can think is beard envy. It's just... There's like no stray hairs just deciding to go normal. It's just nice right over the lip. I'm so actually jealous of his beard. Son of a...
the Sol system in the first place. Now, there were two phases to the Orion program. The first one that I've been talking about these last few minutes ran from 2315 to 2325. This phase of the program is very hard to find any information about. The Office of Naval Intelligence, still in modern canon, has not unsealed documents pertaining to this phase. However, we do know if...
See, that is something I absolutely love when it comes to narratives, because on the one hand, it means we don't know what we're doing yet, and what the hell are we about to do? Oh, dear God. But at the same time, it means that narratively, if someone later on at, oh shit, it's owned by Microsoft now. I was going to say that if they had a good idea, they can maybe run with that as, and here's the ancient history that they should have known about, but they forgot because horrible things happened. And now it's too late and we have to deal with the past coming back to bite us. except it's Microsoft. So yeah. Also, Duck, what are gems? I have no idea. I think it's a new YouTube thing. I just don't know how they work.
Few key details. We know that a few operators were chosen as test subjects and were given a few augmentations. We also know that these few operators were deemed failures and they were rotated back to their original squads. Curiously, however, each of these operators were dead within a year. We know a little bit about the augmentations these men were given.
Was it the augmentations that killed them, or just ONI?
All men. Could have been men and women, but I assume all men. It doesn't make a distinction. One of the augmentations was to increase cognitive function, and another one was to beat facial recognition software. Now, the second phase of the Orion program was
that wouldn't that imply that they probably fucked with their ability to skin, didn't they?
one that we would see a lot more of. It's the phase that produced people like Johnson, like Byrne, like Morales. The prelude to this phase of the program is very different from its predecessor. By this time, the CMA was starting to decline in power, and the outer colonies were starting to ramp up in aggression, as we've talked about. It's during this time. There was a full-blown civil war, and the outer colonies and the UEG was not an organization that knew how to deal with this effectively, but more importantly, they were losing their grip on the outer colonies. As such, the Office of Naval Intelligence restarted the Orion project, not for the CMA, but for the UNSC, and that's not exactly accurate. At first, it was for the CMA. The CMA secretly relaunched the Orion project, starting with 65 soldiers, then increasing it to another 100 soldiers.
See, this actually probably plays into one of the comments I just got. And it does make a lot more sense about Johnson being one of the first-gen Spartans, technically. Okay. See, I always knew something was weird about him, but I kind of fell out of Halo lore about specifics like that. So, yeah, that's the thing. Also, a duck. IDK, the new Xbox CEO, seems to be doing a good job so far, though most talk, no action, so time will tell. Yeah, and also they just announced they're gutting a bunch of different studios and trying to sell them, but also no one's buying, so...
But this would end the CMA as we've already talked about. The Orion soldiers would do two things in connections to ONI that would end the CMA and allow the CMA to be absorbed in large by the UNSC and ONI itself, which, again, we've already talked about. The project would then fall to the UNSC and ONI, and that's how UNSC Marines like Byrne and Johnson became Orion soldiers. I know that's very complex and very confusing. The second phase of the Orion project would see a lot more success than the first phase in the early 2300s. It ran for 15 years from 2491 to 2506. The soldiers received various augmentations, and Johnson remembers it as being that process of being augmented as being filled with agony and leaving him in hormone-induced rages as he learned to cope with this new reality. They received gene therapy to increase their cognitive ability. They had bone augmentations to make them stronger, and they were given human...
I do not remember this part of the game. Granted, that doesn't mean much because I haven't played 3, 4, 5, or Infinity. So that doesn't mean anything now that I think about it.
Growth hormone to make their muscles stronger as well. In very basic terms, they were juiced up and made stronger in basically every way, and they were able to process information quicker than your average person would. But one thing that is important to note here and understand here is that they were never called Spartan 1s. We are the only people that do that. Nobody in universe other than, like maybe Dr. Halsey, would call them Spartans, who again we'll talk about here in a few minutes. Like I said,
how come? Because, like, if the Spartan 2 is a Spartan 2 explicitly, why wouldn't they call... Probably for marketing reasons. It's literally a PR stunt, isn't it? Yeah. Also, Duck, it's better I blame the previous guy for overextending and buying more companies than me and having to do the same. Yeah, by the way, also, they're making more purchases. I'm not joking about that.
The second phase of the Orion project would last for about 15 years, and during those 15 years, significant developments would happen, like Project Ruining from ONI's materials group that created the exosuit for Orion soldiers to make them even more deadly.
What? I'm sorry, for a second there, I thought this was just cutting over to the Tau from 40K. Halo has mobile armors. Like, not just power armor, but like actual full-on, it's just a mech. Okay. Oh, wow. I have missed so many things, apparently.
Than they already were, and they were already exceptionally deadly. The Orion soldiers would spend decades in the outer colonies doing things like Operation Trebuchet, taking the war to the insurrection out in the outer colonies.
Yep.
But it simply didn't work. The insurrection continued to grow, and ONI's AI calculated that if nothing drastic happened, the entire human society would collapse. They calculated that the outer colonies would continue to rise in power, and war on an unprecedented scale would begin sometime into the 2520s.
As opposed to what actually happened, where everyone just died. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't humans' fault, but it happened anyways. Also, funny how the AI is like, you will all die because you will inevitably murder each other. Have fun, meatbags. See, it's funny in hindsight considering where Microsoft is taking the storyline, but I don't like acknowledging that, so we're not going to.
2525 being a sort of end point for that, a soft end point of what they were able to project. So 2525 was a soft deadline to figure something out. While ONI was making these projections, a young civilian doctor was working on her own projections, Dr. Catherine Halsey, and she projected that a 30-year war...
Is it bad that hearing Catherine Halsey be referred to as young just feels weird? Like, unironically, it's just like, oh yeah, in universe, she starts old. And that's just kind of how it goes. But yeah, no. Also, the power armor is Halo Legends. Okay.
War was coming with at least 5 billion deaths. So ONI needed to do something.
To give people an idea, there are 9 billion people on Earth right now. Those are baby numbers if you have hundreds of planets.
Civilian doctor presented her findings to ONI and agreed to work for ONI in Section 3. And she would get right to work creating a super soldier program the likes of which the galaxy had never seen. This group of soldiers would be able to take down the insurrectionist leaders without spending the lives of millions of military personnel and civilians to do so. At first, this project was called Generation 2 of Orion, or Orion Generation 2, but that would change later on. The reason for this change is because this project would be completely different from the 2 phases of the Orion project in major ways, and really it bore no resemblance to Orion in any way other than making humans stronger. These soldiers...
I mean, to be completely fair though, Johnson did outlast a significant chunk of the Spartans, so maybe they were onto something. Other than the how many others didn't make it. So let's ignore that part too.
Would be picked from a very specific gene pool. They would have to be young in order to be indoctrinated and augmented during puberty, and their augmentations would be the most extreme augmentations any human has ever experienced. Originally, the program called for 300 soldiers. From here, the program's budget was cut down to 150. At this point, the Office of Naval Intelligence was able to identify 150 suitable candidates using vaccine programs. They would go out and administer vaccines to children, and while doing so, collect their DNA on the needle or whatever device was used to administer these vaccinations. ONI would then study the DNA results and find 150 candidates. The problem came when ONI cut the program down again from 150 to 75. So arbitrarily, they had to cut 50% of the children that were selected. Now, obviously, abducting children...
Yeah, also... Oddly enough, as much as I initially and still feel that when they say we're going to have to cut some of these children we abducted, it didn't actually kill them. A lot of them just happened to die on their own. But the ones that didn't actually kept, working and had jobs, and some even got brought up later. And like that was actually a thing. They didn't immediately just kill people. They just made flash clones who died horrifically really fast. And it's like, oh, how horrible for you. Let's ignore that. Never going to happen. Yeah. Also, I already mentioned for the record, prediction could be absolute bull and just a power play excuse on ONI. Yeah, could be. Or they could have believed it, which means it's even more terrifying in my end because they're working on the assumption of we need to be monsters. Because if someone's an asshole, they're just an asshole. If someone thinks they're doing the right thing, you have to wonder, are they right? They're probably not. But that is in the back of your head, and depending on how narratively it's handled, it could be a very good plot point. Microsoft owns it right now, so that's not going to happen.
Surgically and chemically changing them, indoctrinating them, and sending them back into the outer colonies where a lot of those kids were taken from. These are all things that are extremely illegal, so ONI needed a place that all of this could happen secretly.
Also, can we just acknowledge the fact that they decide to be secretive, because doing illegal things would look bad is the most ironic thing ever, because we've had the entire video so far of, hey, you know how there's things that we do that no one's allowed to know about because we'll murder you, and that's one of them? Congratulations, we just told you one of them. Now we're going to murder you. I just love the fact that they're very aware that what they're doing is illegal. Fuck it, we're doing it anyways. Oh, man.
What better place than the UNSC fortress world of Reach? The 75 children were taken from their homes, and apparently unknown to the rest of ONI, they were replaced with clones. They were transported to Reach, and the program was renamed Spartan 2. Now, like I said earlier, it is important to mention that Orion soldiers were never called Spartans. Dr. Halsey named her program the Spartan program, and added the 2 at the end to honor the Orion project. Those 75 children got to Reach, and training pretty much commenced immediately. They were trained on military life.
And that answers my earlier question. The 2 at the end is literally just an in-universe because she said so reason. And I'm okay with that. That actually works perfectly for me. Also, I just want to comment on a few things. One, Necro mentioned Oni thinks they're Odysseus. They're not Odysseus. They're a different famous Greek ship captain. And if you know anything about Jason, yeah, no, it's a very apt comparison. That also means the Master Chief is the equivalent of Hercules, who somehow saves their ass all the entire time. Actually works out pretty well as a comparison, huh? Yeah. Also, the Spartan procedure is Warhammer Space Marine procedure, except they try to do it secretly instead of openly. Yep. And I think they actually have a higher success rate depending on the chapter. Because there's a lot of rejection sometimes with 40k Space Marines. It really does depend. A lot of it can be, okay, this is a very easy one to work with, Ultramarines. Or this is going to be, oh God, how fucked up are you to become a Blood Angel? Yeah, there's a lot of variation there.
Were also schooled in complex studies, astronavigation and physics, these things that are normally like very specialized collegiate or professional level studies, and they were taking them as children, like at 9 years old. They were taught how to fight, they were taught how to work as a team, and how to use the UNSC's arsenal. And when they average American something. were 14, they were augmented in codename Project Aster. Their brains and eyes were surgically augmented to increase blood flow, allowing them to see in extremely low light conditions. Their bodies were cut open and ceramics were grafted onto their bones, making them incredibly strong. A tablet was put into their thyroids to make them grow larger and make their muscles stronger. To help with that, they were also given enhancements by way of injections to further increase their muscle strength. Then, and this is the craziest one for me, their nervous systems were completely hardwired.
Oh, that's actually not the part I was going for. It was the bone coatings that really went weird, because they mentioned what happened when it didn't work. And if it didn't work, you really hope you die, because if you survived that, I mean, one of the main characters is someone who survived that, but I guess major side character.
They rewired their entire nervous system to give them a 300% increase in reflex speed. After augmentation, there was some more training to get used to their new bodies, so to speak, and one of these exercises involved a young man that would eventually become the Master Chief. Oni set up a little scenario where orbital drop shock troopers would pick a fight with this Spartan in order for Oni,
as opposed to the normal instances where the orbital drop shock troopers would pick a fight with anyone,
to test the Spartans' physical strength and combat effectiveness. In the fight that followed, John killed 2 of the ODSTs and severely injured the others, including completely obliterating the soft organs of the pelvic area for one of them. The Spartans would be sent on their first mission after they were recovered from their augmentation process, where they would be sent to an asteroid colony in the Eridanus system in order to capture the ex-UNSC colonel and current insurrectionist leader, Colonel Robert Watts. This mission was a huge success for the Spartans. They were able to infiltrate the base, kill armed guards, and take the colonel alive.
Oh yeah, that's what the Spartans look like without Spartan armor. Oh god, I've seen this animation, I just completely forgot about it.
However, the Master Chief would be shot in the process. This shot was not fatal and bounced off of his reinforced ribs, and the entire team survived the mission. 3 months later, the Spartans were briefed on a newly emerging threat that attacked the...
Oddly enough, give some regular ribs their credit. Some caliber bones do, or not bones, some caliber firearms do actually deflect off ribs. It's not impossible already. As long as you don't have bad bone density, it's actually entirely possible. The more high caliber, like anything that's, probably being used in a military operation, would not be that concerned, so it's impressive. But it's not impossible just on current day physiology. That said, if it's being deflected on ribs, what mostly happens is that it deflects in further and bounces at a different trajectory and then just tears you up, and it's bad. So it's not like it's a good outcome either way. In fact, I would recommend 90% of people should not be shot. And the other 10% also shouldn't be shot, but it sounds better when you don't say 100%. Also, Iron, I'm going to pull up your comment. Here we go. There's more than one example where a Spartan 2 encountered the Flash clone that replaced them and self-terminated from the existential horror. Really? I only know the one, I think, from one of the animations where she ended up she didn't self-terminate, she was fighting and saved them, but it killed her in the process. I don't remember others actually terminating, though. Huh.
Colony planet of Harvest, an alien.
Also, Hoof, have I seen the Bricks minifig scandal? Yep. I'm not touching on that because it definitely feels like there's a lot more information I'm missing, and I would like to have a lot more before making opinions.
Conglomeration known as the Covenant had arrived in human space, and the Spartans were the best equipped squad in human existence to deal with them. This situation accelerated the Spartans' armor development, and they were taken to the Damascus testing facility to receive an item that would sort of complete the Spartans as a whole, the Mjolnir-powered armor. But not before they would have their own encounter with the Covenant. On their way, the ship that they were on, the UNSC Commonwealth, was attacked by a Covenant ship, and nothing worked against it. Missiles bounced off its shields, and even a direct hit from the ship's Mac couldn't stop it. The Spartans went down to Chi-Ceti 4, got armored up, and once they were somewhat used to their new armor and the abilities it granted them, they went back into space, took nukes, and infiltrated the Covenant ship, using a nuke to blow it up from the inside. But while inside, Sam would be hit in the soft part of his armor, making it incompatible.
For anyone wondering, this is one of the initial Spartans who was a close friend of Master Chief at the time. This is all literally just from the first book. I recognize so much of this. Also, hey, Cosmic, what's up, man? You're playing Halo right now, so not be stopping with a certain tournament. Be expected today? I wonder what tournament you're talking about. I have no idea.
Compatible with the vacuum of space. This was before energy shielding. John ordered his best friend to stay behind and guard the nukes until they went off, destroying the ship and vaporizing Sam. From here, the Spartans would spend the next 28 years on the front lines of the war. They'd use the Prowler Corps and move across the galaxy. They'd use ONI Section 1's information to strike critical Covenant infrastructure and learn how to fight against the Covenant. With the Covenant moving ever closer to human space and the Spartans being the only real effective means of fighting them, ONI was sure that there had to be more of them. But the Spartan 2 program was far too expensive to make a second class. In fact, funding had started for a second class and then was cut. They knew they needed more, but the second class was cut, but something had to happen. The idea that would come to be the Spartan 3 program would come from Colonel James Ackerson, an outspoken opponent of the Spartan 2 program.
Is it bad that I know Spartan 3s are treated like absolute cannon fodder in lore? But the concept of them is it's a bunch of adult volunteers who get a bunch of super soldier power armor to go with it, and it generally works great, and they can do it in mass numbers, and technically I think that's what you play as if you're ever doing the multiplayer stuff or the missions in the other games. It's like unironically kind of the perfect solution, and yet it's just treated narratively as, oh, and then they did this thing as well. It's like someone talking about the joy and the power of fixed wing prop planes. And it's like, oh, also we have a B-52 bomber. It doesn't really do anything. Okay.
Ackerson would come to the UNSC and ONI and present his idea, a Spartan program drastically less expensive than its predecessor and able to produce far more Spartans.
Yeah.
Since these Spartans would be less expensive, the UNSC and ONI could send them on missions where the much more expensive Spartan 2s couldn't be risked.
And I think they're also just trained less, which is why it became an issue.
Now, I get flack all the time for saying that Spartan 3s are suicides.
Also, I'm being told that Purple Magnetar said Pinkish Nork said that. Oh, I have not seen that video. I need to check out that video later.
Soldiers, but if you actually read the meeting in Ghosts of Onyx that this information is taken from, it's pretty clear what the Spartans were meant for, to trade lives for time. And since they were trading lives for time, and since they were far less expensive, and the two companies are sent on missions in which the entire company is destroyed, I think it's a pretty clear thing to say that they were suicide soldiers. Now,
Yeah, on the other hand, it was, like, I think Ghost of Onyx. No, I was going to think about Halo Reach, but that's a different one. But yeah, no. In general, I'm kind of wondering why they didn't just massively ramp it up. Huh.
this project would do away with the genetically perfect candidates that the Spartan 2 program had, though they would still have genetic screening through the use of that vaccine program again, and they would still use children. This time, the children would be orphans who survived a Covenant invasion and their parents were killed. These children were...
I'm sure there's probably... I was going to say a lot of those, but considering how thorough glassing might be, that actually could be a lower number then. I'm not going to think about that because that's even more depressing.
Asked if they wanted to get revenge for the deaths of their families, and if they said yes, they were in, with some caveats. Not really worth mentioning. Now, this is a sort of...
Wait, they actually got a choice? Okay, that's... Huh. ONI making the still horrible option, but not going for full massive trauma here. Progress? Yeah, sure, let's take it.
Moral issue here. The Spartan 3 program wanted to have this sort of moral high ground, this leg up when it came to the Spartans and the differences between the two programs. So
I mean, it's a very low bar. It's a very low bar.
They could stand on a pedestal and say that, you know, my candidates were volunteers rather than conscriptions. But really no 4 to 7-year-old kid could understand the implications of what that volunteering actually meant. It's
Granted, at that point, they also had the entire implications of my entire planet probably doesn't exist right now as a livable environment, and everyone I know and love is probably dead and dying or wishing they were dead at the moment. So in terms of horrible things they've experienced, it's not the worst option. It's basically giving them the shonen protagonist option of get power, fight.
all just to make the leader's Ackerson feel better about himself, and so he can say he's better than Halsey. Now, to train a Spartan, you need...
Yeah, and that's one, like, Ackerson I don't really care for as a character, and I actually somehow love Halsey as a character, because I think she's aware of how fucked up what she's doing is. She still does it. And then there's other people who are like, they know how fucked up they are, and they're fine with that.
The Spartan. So prior to selection of the Spartan 3s, Kurt 051 was abducted by the Office of Naval Intelligence in a mission with Blue Team. They were out in space and experienced a slip space anomaly where Kurt went missing, presumed dead. He was recovered by ONI and briefed on this new mission, training the next generation of Spartans. He was given a new name, Kurt Ambrose, and given his new rank,
Oh yeah, because he wouldn't have had a last name as part of the Spartan program because they only had their first names. Huh, I actually forgot about that part.
Lieutenant Commander. Now, these children were not taken to Reach, and part of that was because they wanted this program to be completely secret, much more secret than Spartan 2, which was
so secret that it had to be more secret. It's super secret to the super secret of the secrets by being secret.
Already like top level, high level secret, but they wanted the people who were involved in Spartan 2, like Halsey, not to know about this program because
IRL, they came up with this after the point, so they had to come up with an in-universe reason to justify having a whole bunch of new soldiers that no one knew about when they were writing the first part. It's because it was secret from the people who knew everything early on. This is very much a case of the narrative is being influenced by the fact that they wrote something and then decided later on they wanted to add to it and needed to find some way to justify it. But it worked.
She would try to butt in, to try to gain control of the program, and that is something that ONI didn't want to happen. So as such, instead of taking them to Reach, they were taken to a Section 4 planet called Onyx, a planet that was completely secret to the greater UNSC and even most of ONI. These children were taken there,
I'm sure that's
and they
fine.
were trained. They had puberty artificially induced, and they were augmented. The augmentations of the Spartan 3 program had to be safer to administer and produce less washout, so as such, they were given augmentations via injections for the most part. Project Chrysanthemum was the code name for the Spartan 3 augmentations. Alpha, Beta, and Gamma Company would each have the same augmentations, but with the exception of Gamma having a couple more, which we'll talk about here in a second.
Oh?
And
See, this is the part I have very little information about. Previously, he was talking about a lot of things that I did know because it was books I read. Ghost of Onyx is not one of them. I know things from it, mostly from wiki walking compulsively, but a lot of it I just don't know. Why is my hair poofy today? What the hell?
Augmentations would, like with each class, the augmentations would be a little bit safer, a little bit more forgiving, but still just as strong, and produce just as many, if not more, Spartans. They were given an injection that made their bones almost indestructible, that made their muscles stronger, and that gave them better eyesight. They also had an injection that gave them a reaction time increase of 300%. Now, you may notice that these are basically the same effects that the Spartan 2s had. And while the average height of a Spartan 3 is shorter, much shorter than the average height of a Spartan 2, they are virtually the same augmentations, and they are virtually as effective as Spartan 2s when
I just had the stupidest idea. Just giving the Spartan 3 armor combat pumps so that they stand at the same height as a Spartan 2. See? No difference, kids. God. Oh, that's bad. Also, Croc Boo was keeping it shelved. I feel I'm missing a comment and just missing the obvious thing.
wearing the same armor, and that is where the real difference between Spartan 3s and Spartan 2s would come. It would come down to their equipment. Spartan 2s had the finest equipment and armor that the UNSC or ONI could buy or develop, and the Spartan 3s, since they were made to be cheaper and made to trade lives for time, they would use arms and armor that the rest of the UNSC and ONI just had access to, sort of off.
Honestly, if they just gave them better shields, it probably would have been enough. That's the biggest thing that the Spartan 2s have. Mostly because if it playing through Halo is any indication, you're going to be stealing from the Covenant's weapon stocks anyways. Dear God, the Needler, man. Ooh, and Raw. Yeah, only the Spartan 2s had no choice. All the other Spartans did. Also, orphans. There are parents in the military or working on different colonies. Oh, okay. So it could also just be war orphans left behind after someone got glassed. Yeah. Oh, and Maxar, Boo from the Mark 14 torpedoes. Oh, Bureau of Ordnance. Oh, yeah. Oh, I had repressed all of that. Oh, yeah, now I remember, and it's real. That makes it worse.
The shelf equipment. They were given semi-powered infiltration armor, an armor that did not make them stronger or faster like Mjolnir did, but made them harder to see. It had photoreactive paneling
that doesn't sound like a bad thing at all, considering they're mostly the guys who get in unnoticed and then fuck shit up.
Mirrored the environment around them, giving them active camouflage in almost every environment. The Alpha Company Spartan 3s were basically all killed in an operation called Operation Prometheus. ONI Section 1 found a Covenant shipyard on an asteroid called K7-49, and the Spartans of Alpha Company were sent there to render that shipyard inoperable.
I mean, unironically, if they have a stealth Spartan unit, the best way to deal with this would have been sneak in with bombs, leave. I'm assuming that's not what happened.
Which is something they were successful in. Over the course of a week, 20 reactors had been disabled, and the asteroid had cooled to the point that shipbuilding operations could no longer be possible. Unfortunately, the Covenant seized a sizable counterattack, and thousands of Covenant soldiers cut off the Spartans from their escape craft. And all...
so it wasn't get in, get out. It was get in, destroy everything, and then we can't get out. Got it. And Magtar mentioned stealth is better than armor. Yep.
300 Spartans of Alpha Company were killed, aside from those that were taken before this, like those of Noble Team and the Headhunter program. From here, Beta Company was created, and when it came time for their mission, they were sent on Operation Torpedo. This mission was to hit a Covenant fuel refinery on a moon called Pegasi Delta. Again, the Spartans were successful in their mission. Immediately as they landed, they were fired upon by Seraphs, and many Spartans were killed, but the Spartans were able to destroy the refinery as 7 Covenant cruisers came down from the heavens and deployed thousands of Covenant soldiers. Only Tom,
also known as the Master Chief, having a small enemy to fight,
and Lucy were able to get back to their escape craft, and the remainder of Beta Company, other than those that were taken, like those of Noble Team and Headhunters, were killed. With those 2 companies of the Spartan 2 program dead, Gamma Company would come up, and Kurt had to do something drastic to make sure that this next company of Spartans had every means of survival,
other than, paying for decent armor and weapons and shielding. I mean, honestly, just having them deploy stealthily so they're not seen at any point probably would do it. Yeah. Also, Raw. I'm not sure what is the worst. Their best Spartans were the volunteers, if better equipped, or Oni cared more for the kids they kidnapped over the ones that volunteered. It could also just be that the guy in charge of the Spartan Threes was a hypocrite. He didn't actually care. He just wanted to say he's doing the right thing. But the thing is, he still did something slightly less horrific and then did the normal military thing of not actually equipping it fully. Still stuck on that torpedo video from last week.
That they could possibly have. And so he gave them an illegal and dangerous addition to their augmentations. He gave them a neural-altering, non-carcinogenic mutagen that drastically increased the Spartans' aggression in times of great stress. When they were critically wounded or under immeasurable stress.
Oh god, they made them the 40k blowy uppy assassins. Like the biological kill everything, guys. Oh, jeez.
The animal part of their brain would take over. They were able to tap into this incredible strength and endurance. They could fight harder for longer and even bypass shock that would kill a normal human. The downside of all of this is that they would have to constantly be given drugs to counteract this mutagen for normal function. These are drugs that we would call smoothers, and if they were not given these smoothers, they would start to experience uncontrollable aggression, hallucinations, and psychosis. Something
that sounds horrible, and it is, but that kind of condition for people with mental disorders already exists, so the treatment method probably is very well understood. Oddly enough, in the civilian side, I have no idea how ONI would handle this other than, we have a human bomb. Let's do this! Yay, war crimes! See, I'm joking, but at the same time, I would not be surprised if someone actually said that in one of the books somewhere and it just got through anyone proofreading it before it was published. And at that point, it's like, sure, why not?
That I think ruins almost every story that they're in. You would think that given these soldiers had these augmentations and ONI knows about it, that ONI would try to put them in positions where they would be able to constantly be given these smoothers.
Or, just build it into the damn armor.
That is not the case. There are a lot of the time in the stories that we're able to read, the Ferret Squad trilogy, they're put in missions deep behind enemy lines where these smoothers are not a guarantee, and in every story they're in, they run out, and it just ruins that story, in my opinion.
This is what you call a narrative trope. It's where we need to induce drama, and we need to figure out how to do it. One of the easy ways you can do this is such as, my parents are dead. I need to go on a quest for revenge. It's a trope. When you see it, you get it. What they're doing here is the person who's normally calm would normally be super powerful, would normally have all these advantages, and they'd be given a way to fight harder and survive battles well beyond their ability. But the downside to make drama is insert they cannot control themselves. So at some time of high drama, more will happen, and it's bad. So that when something good happens, it's against an even higher backdrop, which sounds overdone. It must be because it is. But at the same time, if you don't do this, stories are just too easy. It's nothing like I press the button on the destroy the enemy, and it destroys the enemy. Technically, everything I just said is a perfectly valid narrative construction of a story of I do think it win. But there's no drama there. There's no downside. There's no, and then this happened. What makes a story interesting is not the successes. It's all the failures prior to the success. It's also, well, that's what a good ending would be. Another one would be a tragedy where it's all of the success prior to the failure. So having that button is probably an overused trope on their part because it's probably not handled well, but it is a very valid idea of we have a bunch of people who are basically the opt-in for people with an addiction, because that's a thing a lot of people would understand. So as a narrative trope, it makes sense. We're including it there. This is what it does. This is what adds to the drama. And if something goes right or wrong, we can say that this is the reason we did it, as opposed to a normal Spartan who wouldn't have that problem, and those problems that crop up wouldn't be there. I get way too into narrative reasoning sometimes, but this is just lit major brain in general. Don't do lit, kids. It sticks with you.
2540s and into the early 2550s, the Office of Naval Intelligence would start experimenting with giving a few enhancements to adult operators. And after some success, ONI Section 3 authorized the prototype of a new Spartan program without the approval of UNSC High Command.
How dare they not use child soldiers, those monsters.
At first, this Spartan program was intended to create a Spartan so strong and so powerful that the Mjolnir-powered armor was no longer needed. Unfortunately,
unless they gave those people shields, I don't think that matters. Because let's be completely fair, the shields are so freaking good.
10 test subjects were given these augmentations.
I'm sure it went fine.
9 of them were killed, and the last one was driven mad. This last one was Ilsa Zane. This project was considered a failure, but a man named Musa Ganem recognized the importance of Spartans, as he was meant to be one of them. Musa was once Musa 096, a Spartan 2 candidate that was crippled during the augmentation procedures of the Spartan 2 program.
Yeah.
He, just like Ackerson, gave his idea to ONI leadership, and they approved the program. Now, Parangoski initially...
Also, if Musa's the one who I think it is, when he said he was crippled, it was the bones. I'm pretty sure he's the one who got crippled because of the bones. Ugh. I'm trying not to remember at the same time I kind of am. I'm not entirely sure I'm right. So, yeah. Also, Croc, you mentioned your idea how to make press button win. Make it so you could have pressed all the time, but didn't know it wins, and only after learning it, turning victory into tragedy that could be avoided. Oh yeah, there's ways to make the story work, but usually it's not simple. You have to add something to it. It's just... the more simple a story is, isn't bad. Simple stories are still valid. For example, The Hobbit is generally just a fetch quest, but they add enough interesting elements that it works. But it's a very simple story up until you get to the ending. But prior to that, like the parts that people mostly remember are very simple and straightforward. But that isn't a bad thing. I just make it out that way because I like more complicated writing. And if it's too simple, it can be just forgettable too. Is
intended for the Spartan 4 program to be ran by the same man who ran the Spartan 3 program to great success, Colonel Ackerson. But unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at the situation, Ackerson was killed when the Covenant came to the Sol system. So instead, she gave the program to the one that came up with the program, Musa, who chose someone very special to be his main recruiter and sort of his second in command for this new Spartan program, a Spartan 3 and a surviving Alpha Company member, June A266. This program would go back to the roots of the Orion project and use adult volunteers. The facilities of this program would be stationed both on Mars but also out in space. Augmentations would be administered in the facility on Mars, but training would happen in a few different facilities across human space, one unidentified station, as well as Laconia Station and Anvil Station. Project Orchid was the code name given to the augmentation procedures for the Spartan 4s. They are continually improved and enhanced, so a newer Spartan 4 would be given the most advanced versions of the augmentations, whereas older would be given, ones that were lesser advanced. Basically, as time goes on, they're improving on this process. Each Spartan 4 was given a upgrade to their neural implant that made them compatible.
You know, I said earlier it was the Spartan 3s you played with in game, but now I'm wondering, am I misremembering this? And it was actually canonically the Spartan 4s you played. No, it was probably Spartan 3s you played in some of the earlier games. I wouldn't be surprised if things like Infinity are probably supposed to be a Spartan 4. I wouldn't be surprised if that changed then. Okay.
With artificial intelligences, their bones are lengthened and reinforced with skeletal fullerene lattices.
I'm not even going to try.
I think that
fullerene? I wonder if it's supposed to be fluorine, because that's actually an element. Also, Inferno, I'm going to pull up your comment because this is actually a fascinating topic to me, and I'm kind of biased. To be honest, I think a lot of writers burn themselves out trying to write a complex story or just have a very complex system that obviously is either hidden or shown, while people mostly enjoy simpler stories. Sort of. Some people, like me, actually do like complicated stories, but they also like more simple stories. It can go either way. What I love is a simple story that has additional complexity if you look to see it. Like Tolkien. There's a lot going on there that is overly complex, but the general stories are very easy to follow. I think that's one of the reasons it's held up. Simple story, a lot of depth. But an easy way to get around this is the exact opposite of how a lot of the best writers do it. Some writers can sit down, they write a chapter, They write the next chapter. They write the next chapter. They finish the last chapter of the book. They edit it to make sure it looks complete, and then they're done. This is the novella, not the novella style, like the light novel style. It is the style of writing, oddly enough, similar to a game where you're putting out installments of it, where you have the plot here, plot here, plot here, but you're not sure what the plot on the 15th or 30th novel or book is going to be, or even the game, because you haven't got that far yet. So you do it in, here's this chunk of lore, here's this chunk. The other way to do it is making an entire Bible of your universe, which is what Tolkien did with the Silmarillion. Not how he did it originally, but that's one of the ways to do it. So you know every step of the way what the deeper lore is going to be, and then you could just slot in the story you want to tell within it. This is something some writers do. They have lore Bibles. It is really hard, because this means when you're writing a story, you have the entire story. So you're then weaving in all the elements you want to show. So you have the ending. And if you want to do foreshadowing, you don't show the foreshadowing first. You write the ending first, and then you change the beginning to make foreshadowing to it, which is a lot easier because you don't have to guess what you're writing in the future. You already wrote it. It just takes a lot longer, and you have to write a lot more before you reveal anything. So you might write an entire series and then start publishing book one. It's a terrible financial decision. But if you're insane, yeah, you go for it. Or if you're Tolkien. Or I think that also might work for people like Stephen King, but he's also one of the weird ones who just sits down and does an entire thing, shelves it, and then just goes back a few years later to edit it and publishes it. Yeah, that's apparently how his writing process works. I don't like his stories because I don't like his verbiage. Like his just general word sentence construction just doesn't sit with me. But I really appreciate how good he is at it. And Raw, I will still recommend videos still to see if people vote for it. The Russian Navy sucks more. Wait, sucks the movie by History of Everything. Oh God. Videos combined on Russia starting the Voyage of the Damned. I've actually heard about that. Oh God. I'm not sure which would be more terrifying. The Fat Electrician covering Craigslist or this? Probably the Fat Electrician because Craigslist is IRL currently.
That's how you pronounce it. Making
Russian
them
doesn't have a
stronger
navy.
than steel. Their muscles were strengthened and their joints were either enhanced or completely replaced. They did this because simple movements with their new muscles could shatter those joints, and so they had to either enhance them or completely replace them. They were given reaction time enhancements, and aside from their brain, pretty much every organ inside their body is either replaced with a synthetic organ or they are given some sort of augmentation. Their eyes received implants. They gave them the ability to...
Okay, I don't know why that surprises me out of all the things we've heard. The concept of a synthetic organ is like, oh, so their basic biological technology is good enough to just make replacement organs? I don't know. I just thought that would be a higher tier and like much more of a big thing, but apparently not. Okay.
In extremely low light situations, and their blood was enhanced to achieve faster clotting and the ability to filter out most toxins. They underwent gene therapy to do some stuff that I don't really understand, and they were given a number of smaller enhancements. Paired with the Mjolnir power suit, Spartan 4s are just as effective as their predecessors, without the moral implications.
And you probably have a lot of adults who are very much the go, so I could be a Spartan right now, no downsides, and probably survive pretty easily. Minus the entire becoming a Spartan, not surviving much. Neat!
The Spartan 4 program has produced more Spartans than any of its predecessors, and these Spartans have been able to do incredible things and make sure that humanity's place in the galaxy never comes under threat again.
Investigation? Researching the ancient galaxy. Okay, this I know about from Lore Dice, but I'm not sure how ONI looked into it.
One of the main functions of the Office of Naval Intelligence, as we have already discussed, is the investigation of the galaxy around us. There are many things to this day that in Halo lore humanity knows very little about, specifically things like the ancient era of the galaxy that still impacts the modern canon in massive ways.
Like how humanity was a rival power to the Forerunners, and they lost because Flood. Yeah.
Human Covenant War, ONI had a massive job to do, and that was figuring out any information they could on the Covenant and why the Covenant was attacking the human race. It would be ONI that studied...
Okay, what I just said is mostly reductive, but technically it's accurate. So I'm going to leave it there just so you know I'm aware how much I'm leaving out on everything I just said.
Covenant attacks, their language, their technology. It would be ONI that figured out their command structure and their religious aspects of that command structure and their hierarchy. The Office of Naval Intelligence would also study the ancient Forerunner sites that popped up in the later stages of the war, as well as various Forerunner artifacts that were collected and found. They found a massive Forerunner ship underneath a glacier on Reach where Dr. Halsey would study the data inside. Part of this data would contribute to the location data that Cortana used when fleeing Reach to find Alpha Halo. Ooh. After the Covenant unearthed the Forerunner portal in Eastern Africa, ONI studied the area intensively and were even able to open the portal again with the help of the Swords of Sanghelios in 2555. They also used it as a base of operations after the Guardians came to Earth in 2558. Speaking of that...
Oh yeah, I forgot about those. That's more on the new timeline. Also, Bill, you mentioned, or you could go the platformer route with lore and just staple a bunch of crap on hope it works. You're looking at you, Insomniac and Activision. Yeah, although Activision did do a good job. Wait, no, was Activision the one that did Resistance or not? I don't think they were, actually. It's been so many years. Good lore on that.
That portal, ONI would send a ship to the Ark in 2553 before the portal was opened. The thing about slip space is, as long as you can survive the journey and fuel the ship, the range is nearly infinite. And so they were able to send a UNSC ship called the UNSC Rubicon to the Ark without the portal, since they had its location. Its stay on the Ark would be pretty short-lived, as they would find the destroyed fragments of 343 Guilty Spark. They were able to wake Spark, and he told them incredible stories about the ancient galaxy, and these...
I swear, Guilty Spark is one of the most schizophrenically written characters in fiction, because you could tell the people writing him over multiple decades had no idea what they were doing, and they did not talk, they did not look at each other's notes, and it goes all over the place on this thing. Oh boy. Also, I'm just going to pull it up because it does revolve around writing comments. I did read your comment already and even responded, but I want to just read it out loud. Info, you mentioned you hate stories that are complex for the sake of being complex. And that sucks. You prefer a story that is story with complexity. It can't be one or the other because it's better to have them together. Ran out of text because what I want to say is complexity is like a side dish, if not the main dish, and it's meant to be enjoyed, but you don't get the full side dishes if you get off the main dish. Yeah, I can see that. Although some stories do need the complexity. Like if you're doing a political intrigue story, not usually my fare, but you need the complexity for that one. That's just a specific genre requirement at that point. But I get what you mean. A story that's complex for the sake of being complex, and it's not a genre requirement, very much a problem. Especially because it usually runs into the writers don't know what they're talking about. They're trying to write someone smarter than they are, and they're not doing the obvious thing of making the smarter person than they are stand in the background so they can understand it. And when they get the ending, they can then work backwards and then add in the correct answers so the person knew all the time. It's very hard to write someone smarter than yourself because you are not smarter than yourself. Yeah. So what might be obvious to someone else may be not obvious to you, and you miss it, so your character misses it. It's also one of the reasons just waiting a bit and having other people help you is a good idea sometimes. But that just gets more into a lot of other stuff. I'll say raw. You mentioned flash cloning was used to make organs. They have difficulty making clones for their cloning is not modern cloning. Creating a biological baby with the same genetics and sterilizing the egg. I mean, to be fair, modern cloning is not as crazy as flash cloning here. Although we are getting to the point of possibly being able to use a slurry of biological material to 3D print organs. There's some work on that right now. It doesn't work outside of like a single thin layer. Like vessels, like individual valves for a heart are about as complex as I've heard they've been printed. But also my information's years old at this point. So it could have actually advanced well beyond that.
Paired with the Born-Stellar relation found on Onyx are the Forerunner trilogy of books. Spark told them about Born-Stellar and the Forerunners, the Ark and Halo, and the Didact. One threat that Oni jumped at the chance to control was the Flood. After the Flood was discovered on Alpha Halo and continued to be a problem throughout the rest of the war, Oni had the idea that it was possible that maybe the Flood could be controlled. So they...
If I had a nickel for every time someone in Halo said that, I'd probably have 1 nickel per every book.
Took
Novel,
control of a prison ship
comic,
called the Mona Lisa and took it to the wreckage
game,
of Alpha Halo. They recovered
radio
samples
play.
of the Flood and using human and elite test subjects started Flood experiments. Of course, we all know how this would go. It went terribly, as we could all guess, and the Flood broke containment, ran rampant throughout the ship, and even going so far as to create a proto-gravemind, which is the first step in the gravemind process. ONI also concluded research on Delta Halo about the Flood, but Delta Halo was deemed too dangerous to actually go down and study, and as such, ONI coordinated a quarantine of the Halo, and in fact the entire system, with the UNSC and the Swords of St. Helios. And speaking of the Flood, I think it is important to mention that Dr. Halsey created a file on the Battle of Alpha Halo.
Oh,
and in fact, she made 2. In one of them, the information about how the Flood didn't seem too interested in Johnson was included, and in another...
See, I know this is canon from the very first game. I know the answer was given. I know I've heard it and read it before. I still don't remember this. Like, unironically, I do not remember, and it's bugging me.
That information was not included, and after the unyielding Hierophant was destroyed, the Master Chief decided to destroy the report with Johnson's information on it and handed the other one in to ONI. This likely set back ONI research, but it also likely saved Johnson's life. ONI has also been able to find...
What actually happened to Johnson anyways? Because I thought he died at some point, but also it'd be nice to find out he didn't. I haven't looked it up for the exact reason of I don't want to find out he died, because he's just one of the characters I really liked.
A ancient human ship, and the revelations of this research are actually really, really important. ONI knows that this is an ancient human ship who they call the Ancestors. Now, they found this ship some point after the war with the Covenant, but they had been aware of the Ancients as early...
Okay, I'm just going to say it. Every time I see the ancient humans, all I can think of, oh, it's an entire civilization of The Rock. Look at this and tell me that's not what you're thinking. I know it doesn't even look like him, but that's where my mind goes. Also, I'm just thinking specifically The Rock as he was in the Mummy movies, which is not the best choice, and it's probably the one he wishes most people would forget, but it's where my mind goes.
Early as 2544, when an ancient human ruin had been found. ONI scientists were able to come to the conclusion that the ship was not Forerunner or Covenant, nor did it have any traces of Flood infection, and as such, it was given to the Ark Dream team for further study. Now, the Ark Dream team is the ancient human team that was formed after those ruins were found that I just mentioned. Ark Dream teams that studied this ship have started to have some strange visions. They saw an ancient human under trial by the Forerunners after being accused of spreading the Flood intentionally. But the biggest revelation to come out of this is the fact that many ancient human settlements have been kept a secret from the Forerunners, and so they were not destroyed following the Human Forerunner War, as most ancient human things in the galaxy were.
See, that's cool. I don't know anything about this because this is well after my time period where I really hyper-focused on Halo, but that's cool, and it would make sense because, from what I remember, the Forerunners and the humans did not get along before shit hit the fan, so yeah. Also, Croc, nothing like bad CGI face of real actor voicing the character in a live action movie. We're just going to forget I know exactly what you're talking about. Also, yep, Bill, we hit the goal. We'll do it right after the video.
Meaning, the Office of Naval Intelligence now has the location of ancient human sites in their entirety, untainted by Forerunner destruction. And so if I were to guess, this is going to be the next boom in Halo lore.
See that? How old is this video? A month old? Okay, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe he's right, but I thought Halo was kind of just wrapping up because Infinity didn't make as much money as they wanted. Which is sad because, you know, if they had made a decent story. From what I heard, the story was, okay, decent. Like, not good, but just fine. Like, just utterly fine. And considering its only competition right now is gacha games. Actually, I'm not even sure if there's any gacha games that do shooting specifically. I guess Snowbreak would count, but that doesn't really feel like an accurate comparison. They kind of would be able to just make it through here, but Also, or the Forerunners are humans is a retcon by 343. I thought the Forerunners specifically were always the alien race, and that was the retcon. Or is it that the Forerunners are not the Forerunners, but a different race that had the name we all thought it was? Honestly, I don't know at this point. There's so much going on, and Microsoft is... It's Microsoft, so if there's even going to be something, who's going to find out? Inferno ZZZ? They don't really have a shooter version, though. Like, looter shooter is not something that they really have anymore because Destiny's dead. And there's no Destiny 3, which still bugs me.
Previous boom in Halo lore came from Onyx. In 2552, Onyx disintegrated into trillions of Forerunner Sentinels, but what was inside was a soccer ball-sized slipspace bubble that housed a Forerunner shield world. I talked a lot about this in my Kilo 5 video, so I'm not going to go into huge detail here, but it is going to be about the last thing we talk about here. Inside, ONI has set up a research station called ONI Research Site Trevelyan, named after the man who saved it, Kurt Trevelyan, who was Kurt Ambrose, who was Spartan Kurt. Inside, they found a wealth of Forerunner technologies, but the most important was Forerunner original engineers, or Huragok. These have been dispersed amongst the fleet and have been working tirelessly to upgrade human systems. This is why things like the Infinity have...
Wait, there was a Forerunner era engineer just alive still? I mean, I know those things were like biological computers. I just didn't realize they had that kind of longevity. Or they was just their own little... They just kept making more of themselves, for all I know. That would make sense, too.
Insane slipspace drives. This is why things like the Kilo 5 Pelicans have slipspace drives. And it's a huge reason why...
I'm just going to go back. This... For as much as I can bellyache about some Halo stuff, God, dude, the ships look so cool! Oh!
Like the Kilo 5 Pelicans
that's a
have
beauty,
slipspace
man.
drives. And it's a huge reason why humanity feels so strong in the post-war galaxy. Through this ONI research and the Huragok, humanity has really stepped up in their level.
Is it weird that like every time I hear ONI doing anything, it's like bad? But as soon as that anything changes over to research, it's like, and here's where ONI did something really cool and it made the setting better. And it's like, okay, we're talking about the same group here. Just every damn good thing in the setting seems to come from ONI, and every bad, horrible thing humans do in the setting seems to come from ONI. It's like, I wonder if this is just one of those instances of multiple writers having different takes on how they want to use ONI, and it's just leading into the right hand doesn't know what the left toenail is doing on the right foot. The second right foot, because apparently you have three and you just never noticed.
Of technological advancement.
Chapter 5. Conclusion. For the betterment of humanity.
The Office of Naval Intelligence is consistently given heat for being the bad guys of the human military system. And as we've discussed, in some ways that is true. But ONI also kept the human race going, kept us alive and powerful in the post-war galaxy. They created the Spartans, they had a heavy hand in the creation of the Infinity, they warned planets of Covenant invasion, and worked with the UNSC to defend those planets. So while it is true that they have done horrible things to people, without them it is likely that humanity would have lost the war faster than the 28 years that the war actually took, and if we did survive the war, we wouldn't have been nearly as strong as we are now, after the fact. So ONI does dirty things, but they do it for the betterment of mankind, and for the survival of the species. And with that, this video is over. Thank you all so very much for watching. This was a lot of fun to put together. I'm really looking forward to my next video as well. We're going to have a supplemental video. If you're in the Discord or in the Patreon, you'll know that I put up a schedule for the year on what videos are going to be coming out and when. We're going to have a supplemental video next month, and then back to our regularly scheduled videos the month after that.
Can you imagine having regularly scheduled videos? Oh, that would be like knowing what I'm doing tomorrow. That never happens. So this was the entire deep dive into all of ONI, and frankly, you have no idea how hard it hasn't been to finish this on my own time, because I was just sitting here going like, I need more of this! Because I've mentioned deep diving Halo lore before, And I never was good at this game. I suck. I have no aim outside of Battletech for some reason. But I have no aim. And I still get sucked into this world every now and again, because even if some of the games have really dumb plot points, other bits are really fun. And I'm like, oh, they added this thing in a sidebook that no one in management knew about, so they actually got away with doing something really cool. And this is it, and it's awesome, and I love it, and I just want to know more about it. You have just I want to go binge this, damn it. Not enough to make me play Infinite, because actually I have nothing wrong with it. Who knows, man, I might even do that at this point. It's free, I think. We'll find out. But I love stories that have the long-running franchises that, even if they have dumb points, competent writers have been kept around long enough that the books and the novels do have some high points that when you find out about them are just fun to learn about. It's just good, man. Basically what I'm saying is, if you haven't already, there's a link below to the original video. Hit it up. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.